Emma, she's not with us. I will, her work is quite intimate. She has been exploring the topics of grief and loss of her mother. So what I will do is that I will show her actual woven voices session where she will talk, where she talks about her project.
Okay, my name is Emma Hirsk. I'm from Northern Ireland, but I'm based, living and working in Stockholm, Sweden.
That sounds good, I think, no?
Yes.
Several reasons, really, both professional and personal. I wanted to participate in the Woven Network NORDICS because it's an opportunity to be a part of something unique, I think, like a pan-Scandinavian, pan-European project. And it focuses on women's role in the pandemic and women's voices in the pandemic, which is very unusual. And it also gave me a chance to move beyond my own arts practice as a kind of isolated artist in my studio, but to connect with other artists across Sweden, Norway, and Denmark. And see how the community sector works across Scandinavia, really, and across Europe a little bit more. Gives you a bit of insight. And connect with female artists was a great part of it as well. So, many ways. I think any of the artists that we've worked with, especially those of us that are from a different country that have come here, have been affected in many ways, personally and professionally. Being from Northern Ireland and living and working in Sweden, with all of that kind of entails with COVID, has kind of affected everything, really, to be honest. In terms of the digital residency for Woven Network Nordic, the digital framework gave us a chance to, even though the pandemic was ongoing, to really explore and immerse ourselves, I think, in strategies for working remotely. So the residency gave us that opportunity to do that, and to think, communicate, produce work, collaborate together, and disseminate works in a remote way. So, I mean, in terms of artistic practice, I think COVID didn't affect the residency, but it was set up for that, to cope with that, I think. In terms of my work, it's directly influenced the work that I've done for the project. So the themes in my own work are to do with grief. The theme of my project is Grief Cartographies. So it looks at grief kind of, and how the pandemic and how grief affects across borders, across countries, across travel, and all of those things have been affected by COVID. I lost my mother earlier this year, and she's from Northern Ireland, so I've been working across kind of this project between Sweden and Ireland and trying to make work that helps with that somehow helps with grief in the time of a pandemic, really. Well, the work, I've just mentioned it briefly, that I created for this project for the Woven Network is called Grief Cartographies, is titled that, and it looks at kind of private and collective loss, trauma and grief within the pandemic, within the context of the pandemic. Like I said, I'm from Northern Ireland, but I live and work in Sweden. I have done for a few years now. And so this project was born from the really kind of deeply private loss of my mum earlier this year, but it's also contextualized against the backdrop of the pandemic. So it looks at restrictions across travel, borders, contact, care, family, illness, touch, all of those things that come with grief and things like that. So my research for this project has looked at time and touch, distance, identities, memories, geography. It's covered lots of things to do with very personal things as well, but also to do with the pandemic as well. And the residency has let me do that. So yeah, it kind of started with drawings and writings, notes, maps to do with being between Ireland and Sweden, sculptures, films, photographies. It's been a long residency, so we've been able to really kind of immerse ourselves, I think, in the process. For the final exhibition, I suppose we had the exhibition in Stockholm in Studio 44, which was, I suppose, 3/4 of the way through the residency. So my final exhibition will build upon that. It will be a collation of sculpture, photographic and film works that have been developed over the course of the residency. but it will also incorporate new works that I've been working on since the exhibition in Stockholm in September. I suppose the new works, as time goes on, some things get easier. So my mum was a photographer as well, and I've started using, it's taken time, but I've started using her camera to kind of use in my practice. She was a film photographer as well. So I started using that and taking photographs with that. So some of the new works are film works, analog photography works that will be included in the final exhibition, and just different ways of looking and seeing. So I kind of feel when I use the camera, it's very personal, but I feel like I can show her things and she can see things even though she's not with me. So I'm using her camera as a new way of seeing, as a way to kind of connect with my mother, and also make work that kind of helps with the grief, really. So I suppose, you know, it's in different ways. So new works will be a combination of everything from this year. Yeah. I think we've touched on a few things just chatting briefly, but I think the real benefit to this residency, the Woven Network Nordic residency, has been the time to create like a full body of work, and to have time to think. I sometimes find when you're making work, and with everything else that we have to do as artists, you don't often get time to think about what you want to say. You have an idea and you make it. But this has given us time to think about what we're making and then make work based on that, and base work, you know, in different ways. So it's given us time. It's also given so many opportunities for collaboration, for connection, and solidarity as well with other women artists working in these conditions across, like yourself, you know, in different parts of Europe and Scandinavia, and giving us insight into different ways that artists and cultural producers work, normally and in these kind of exceptional circumstances as well, you know, to make connections across Europe, which has been incredible. And to meet other women artists and feel like you have some kind of connection with them has been amazing, actually. Yeah, so it benefits on lots of different levels, really.
Should I show the works of Emma?
If that's okay with you, Brynhild, that would be great. I was just testing the sound on my computer and it's also low.
Yeah. So projects, Emma.
Brynhild, can you enlarge your screen, your window?
Yeah.
So we don't see all the other background stuff.
Yeah. One moment.
It's above the Woven Network logo. Yeah.
Okay. Sure. Let's see. So there's 3 videos and still pictures. Yeah.
Why don't you speak up? Why don't you use your voice? Why don't you shut up? Be quiet. You are gone. I am lost. I am still here, still breathing, still moving, still mothering, an automaton of care. But what do I do now? Pain, grief, loss are just words. The tear inside, the hole that means that I do not want to heal. It is the place where you were, my irreplaceable. I am still me, always separate, always myself, single-minded. I could be, because you were constant. I went my own way, but you were my glorious roadmap. But what now? How do I go on without you?
Thank you, Brynhild.